In this video, I'm going to show you how masks work in Photoshop. Let's take this example image. It shows the output of a CAD program, and as you can see, the colors are pretty distinctive. To make it easier to select the areas and do something with them. First of all, let's produce a black and white adjustment layer. Now, as you can see, the black and white adjustment layer covers the original colored image. Let's try out something more dramatic. Okay, now what I want to show you is how to use a mask inside this adjustment layer. As you can see, we have this white miniature rectangle. This is actually the mask of my black and white adjustment layer. And as it is white, it doesn't do anything. So in the beginning, you might ask yourself, what is a mask anyway? When I see this small miniature is surrounded by this line, this means it is active and expects something to do with it, so I can paint something inside. A mask is basically a grayscale image. In this case it's white, so it can take grays or blacks and you would see the effect. Now let's use a gradient. The gradient is going from foreground to background. Foreground is black, background is white, so this is a black to white gradient. Let's choose a linear gradient and just draw something. And now you see that the original colored image is showing up in the upper left corner and the lower right corner is showing the black and white adjustment layer. Now you can play around with the gradient and actually painting the gradient inside the mask. Now there are some tricks to know about masks. First of all, when you alt-click this miniature, you see the mask actually showing up as a grayscale image. Now you might want to do something inside this mask. Let's say you want to paint with a pretty huge stroke, and now as you do this you see that you're actually painting inside your mask. Now when you alt click this miniature again, you see that you actually did something to your image. Let's again use the gradient. This time we take a radial gradient and do something like this. Okay, so you can play around with the mask and produce a transition between your original image and this adjustment layer. So this is one way to use a mask. By alt-clicking the miniature, you can make the mask itself visible, and by alt-clicking again, you revert to the normal situation that the mask is only showing its effect on the image, but not showing itself. You can also shift-click this miniature, so the mask will be disabled, and shift-clicking it again will enable it again. Now let's disable this and produce some more adjustment layers. Let's take the photo filters and let's use a more distinctive coloring, like for example this warm filter, this yellow. Let's produce another one. We can actually copy a layer by dragging it to the plus sign. Now you have two layers showing the same adjustments, and now we can use a cooling filter like this one. And now we have two filters lying on top of each other. And now what you can do, you can copy the mask of the black and white adjustment layer by pressing Alt and moving the mask. Photoshop asks you if you want to replace the existing white mask. Yes, you want to do that. So you see what's happening. Okay, so let's do this again for this one. And now you might want to do something about these masks. For another feature of masks, you see in the properties panel, you can invert them. And now you have showing this blue filter exactly in the part where the other one is hidden. Looking to the properties panel, you see there are some more options. You can also diminish the mask effect by just reducing the density. And as you can see in the miniature, it's turning white when scaling it down to 0%. Let's hide all those new layers and take a look at our original image. And now let's do something else what we can use masks for. And as you might have seen in previous tutorials, doing collages in Photoshop is a pretty common thing. And what you normally do, you select things and delete the parts. But of course, as you might anticipate, it's more intelligent to use masks for getting rid of image content. Let us copy the background layer so we can use this layer for collaging, Command or Control J. Now we can switch this one off. And now let's put something behind this or below this layer so we can use this as a background later on. I have an image bought from Adobe Stock. I can move it over to this image and move it down. Let's first of all leave it like that. Now let's select the green part and the blue part. And actually we could also select the shadowy part here. As I said in the beginning, this is a CAD drawing and this was made to be easily selected in Photoshop. So the colors are very distinctive. Now this is an ideal use case for using the magic wand tool. Now I can just select the green part, the blue part and this one. I have to check contiguous, do it again. And how do we produce a mask out of this selection? Well, this is easy. Just click on this small button down here. It's called Add Layer Mask. And now that we have a selection, Photoshop converts this and selection into a mask. And keep in mind that you have the layer selected where you want this mask to be assigned to. Okay, now as we see, the mask is inverted. So it's doing the opposite of what we expected. No problem. The mask is selected. Just click on Invert. And everything is fine. Now, as you see, I forgot something. So again, let's click on the image miniature because now we have two different things on our layer. One is the image and one is the mask. And when I use the magic wand tool, I can do this in the mask and do this inside this image. So we have to be sure that we are working inside this image. And now I can click on the blue parts and we see there are some minor remnants of the original colors. We will get rid of them later on. Now we have these parts selected. Now click on the mask miniature again. This is crucial. And now we want to have these parts filled with black. This is something where we want to see the background later on. So this has to be black in the mask. Edit, fill, and fill this with black. Okay. As I showed you before, by alt-clicking on the mask miniature, you can see the mask. And now we can do some repair work. We can paint inside this with black or white or gray. In this case, it's a simple black and white affair. So we have the black and white foreground and background color. We use the brush tool, for example, and just paint black where we need black. And of course, we have to scale down our brush. You can also shift click and this way you'll get straight brush lines. Click once, shift click for the second part. Speed this up a little bit. Okay, this looks pretty decent, so we can use this mask. Alt-clicking again on the mask miniature shows the original image again. As we can see, it's not perfect. We see some green halo around the house. So this means we initially didn't select all of the green stuff. This was because our magic wand tolerance was pretty low, and we can fix this by just selecting again using a higher tolerance. So let's click on the image miniature again, use the same magic wand tool that we used before, but now we set the tolerance to, let's say, 10. Actually, because we have this very distinctive colors in our original CAD drawing, we can even use a higher tolerance. Now, when I click on this part, I'm not actually clicking onto the background image, but I'm clicking onto the green part of this layer because this one has been selected. And as sample all layers is deactivated, this means when I click here, though it doesn't look like that, I'm just actually clicking on the green part of the original image. So I'm doing this again, and let's hope the selection is a little bit bigger than before. We see that in the mask, this should be black. So we have to actually click on the mask miniature again and use edit, fill, and fill this with black. And now when I press Command or Control D, I see that this trick worked. Now we can easily move around our background image to fit it into our window. Let's get out of this a little bit and scale it. Command T. Now the horizon of the background image matches our CAD image. So up to now what we did with masks was we added some adjustment layers and used mask for that. Then we got rid of parts of our original image, not by deleting them, but by masking them. And now we can also use the mask technique to recolor our image. Now let's say we want to recolor this one down here. What we can do, we can click on this image again, use the magic wand tool again, and select the yellow part. And it makes more sense to uncheck contiguous, so we have all the yellow parts selected. Now what we can do, we can produce a color layer, And as you can see, it will be automatically masked. And now we can choose some kind of color that we would like to have on the floor. Let's stick with a somehow reddish gray. Okay. Now you see the mask is actually showing up here. And you can also see that you have this new color layer using this mask. Now, every time you think you want to change something, you can just double click this icon and do something about this floor color. Okay. Now let's do something about the shadow. By alt-clicking on the eye symbol of a layer, you isolate it and you see only this layer. By alt-clicking again on the eye of this layer, you see everything else again. And now I want to see the original image. I have to shift-click the mask miniature so I see my original image again. As I said, this shadow area is something that I would like to see on my background image. So what I'm going to do, I use the Magic Wand tool. Click on this part. And now I don't want to take all these shadow areas. I just want to take this one that I clicked on. I have to check contiguous again. Command or Control D. Click again. Now let's show everything again. Show our mask again. Shift click. And now this part has to be darkened on the background. So let's take the background layer. Click on this. And now we produce a levels adjustment layer. I take this all the time for enhancing contrast and also darkening or brightening up things. And now you see that we have this new adjustment layer and we have a very small piece of mask showing this layer. At the moment it doesn't do anything. Now you can move this slider and darken this so this looks like a shadow. It looks a bit strange because it's turning pretty yellowish, but we can deal with this later on. And now we can also desaturate it. Hue saturation. We can use the same mask, Alt drag. Yes, we want to replace it. And now we can dial down the saturation. We can also feather the mask so it doesn't look that precise. As you can see, we have this slider. Let's take 9 and let's use this for this one too. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Now for the mirroring parts of the building. First of all, we again have to return to our original image so we can select the parts of it. And it's basically all the red stuff that we have to select. Let's uncheck contiguous again. We can use the shift keys to enhance the selection. Okay, let's produce a black and white layer, and you see we recolored it into black and white, but we missed some parts. This is not much of a problem, we can fix this. So let's repair this. Again, we turn to this image and select these missing parts. Go back to the mask here. Remember, the parts that have to be black and whitened have to be white in the mask. So now we have to again edit, fill them with white. You see now they are black and white too. Let's change the blending mode of the layer into something else like multiply. And you can also try out some other blending modes. But let's assume that this one is nice, difference. And now you have some pretty decent mirroring effect. One last thing and then we are finished. In this whole image context, this building looks pretty low in contrast. What we would like to do is to add a levels adjustment layer and then try to figure out how to isolate the parts that we want to really have worked on with this levels layer. So first of all, we just choose this one and let's enhance the contrast like so. And don't bother with the background. Of course, this levels layer is affecting all the layers below, so it's also affecting the background layer. But never mind, as you can see, it's lying above the original image and our background. Now when we press Alt and click on the small line between the layers, you see that the effect is confined to the layer just below this, so only to the image layer. Now this is working on everything that is still to be seen, also the floor part. So we could just select all the parts of the image that are on top of that, like this. Click on this mask, invert the selection, and fill everything with black. Use edit again, fill, black. When I shift click on the miniature, you see the mirroring parts getting contrast D2. And now I can switch this off again. As you see, working with masks is not a thing in itself. It's always a means to an end. It's essentially a way of blending out parts of layers. And as you could see, not only image layers, but also adjustment layers, effect layers. The basic way of creating masks, managing masks, and painting inside masks is always the same, but you can apply these to all kinds of layers just as you need them.